Any analysis of national elections always comes down to a few swing states, the ones that aren't reliably in one camp or the other. And no state swings quite as hard as Ohio. 20 electoral votes make a fairly rich prize, and through the 2000s it has seen everything. Well, this is where we get into the one chart that explains nearly everything, and we'll get to in a moment. But first we have to understand that Ohio is a very unique state and that it's part of the industrial Midwest, the manufacturing heartland of America. It's a place where people make stuff. It has the two big cities with NFL teams, but it also has smaller mill towns dotting the rolling hills. 18% of Ohio jobs were in manufacturing in the year 2000. And these are more than just as a percentage of the economy a big deal. Manufacturing jobs are places where you can get a job right out of high school, and you can work your way up through the ladder showing your skills and abilities. They represent opportunity, and they kind of define what the state is all about. That's where this chart comes in. What you see is this: since the year 2000, manufacturing in total manufacturing jobs in red and the total number of jobs in blue. And what you can see is that manufacturing jobs fell off a cliff through the first recession we had in 2001, and then in the second recession in 2007 fell dramatically. A total of 400,000 lost during this time. The total number of jobs, well, it didn't fare much differently. We wound up losing a total of 600,000 during the same period, and it fell off the same sort of cliff in the year 2001, but never really recovered much. 2005, now a little bit of a blip up, but then it fell off a cliff again in 2007. Two-thirds of the total job loss in Ohio came from manufacturing jobs. And if you look at it, the two recessions are very much combined into one long depression throughout the entire season. What does this do for their voting record? Well, here's another chart of how Ohio voted. They came into the 2000s fairly reliably Republican, voting for two-thirds of their representatives to Congress being Republican, and going in the presidential election for Republican as well. 2006, they timidly went a little bit more Democrat, voting for a senator and a governor that were Democrats, but in 2008 swung really, really hard. A majority of their seats in the House went for Democrats, and their vote in the presidential election as well. 2010, they swung right back the other way. What they're doing is nobody's paying attention to this terrible job loss that continues, this depression that's continued all the way through. And every 2 years, the voters just vote out the guys that they voted in the last time around. That's a swing state. They go back and forth because nobody's paying any attention to what they do. This is what happens in Ohio, and it's been repeated throughout the manufacturing heartland. If you look at Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Illinois, you see about 20 seats that swung in the 2010 election, or about a third of the total swing nationwide, even though those states only represent 19% of the population. They're the ones that are the most upset and most likely to change every election. Why do they do that? Because there's a terrible depression going on and nobody's been doing anything about it. That's how economics influences our politics, and it's all about jobs in the manufacturing heartland. Will something change this year in 2012? We will see. It depends on how happy people are. There's a little blip up at the end of that chart that gives everybody some hope. But mainly, it's more of the same. We'll see what that means in this election.